everyone. I'm Greg Gumbel, and welcome to Inside College Basketball presented by Progressive Insurance. Selection Sunday has arrived, but there's still conference champions to crown. Will begin at 1 Eastern time here on CBS. St. Louis and St. Bonaventure will battle for the Atlantic 10 title and its automatic bid. What's on tap after that, Clark Kellogg?
Thank you, Greg. We've got the third meeting between these two teams. Sparty and the Wolverines go at it. Can Michigan get over the hump by containing Cassius Winston? We'll find out shortly. Seth, what do you got at that end?
Well, you may have heard we got a little TV show to do at 6 o'clock Eastern time. It's the selection show. All the guessing is going to be over. We'll tell you who's in, who's out, who's going where. It's Selection Sunday on CBS. Let's tip it off.
Here we go. Does it get any better than this? Big time jam! Oh, how that's spectacular! You better believe it!
Should you hear a loud sigh of relief right around 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight, it just might be coming from the NCAA Selection Committee. They're still running through all the scenarios so that they can deliver a 68-team field later today to us and to you. Right now, they're on the clock. That clock is ticking. About 6 hours remain, and those teams will have one goal in mind, a trip to Minneapolis to cut down the nets, raise that trophy. I can only imagine the emotions teams are waking up with this morning. I know the kind of emotions you guys.
Excitement.
St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, but it's Christmas for you.
Yes, it is. Selection Sunday, it is here. And what I'm most looking forward to seeing, Greg, obviously we talk 1 and 2 seeds, and then with the who's in, who's out at the bottom of the bracket. But where will the seed line stop, or how high will it go for Buffalo and Wofford?
Well, at least they know that they're in. So to me, we've got a new metric that the committee is using and an age-old debate about power conference teams who have a built-in advantage with their schedule and non-power conference teams and mid-majors. We got a bunch of them on the stoop in Belmont, UNC Greensboro, Furman, Lipscomb. Can those guys somehow get into the field? I hope they do.
All right, guys, let's get you caught up on last night's conference tournament action. And let's begin with East Washington at Montana.
Yeah, they came back in the second half. Saeed Pritchett had a game-high 18, 2 of them right there. And the Grizzlies, that second half comeback holds up. Second trip to the dance for Travis DeCure with his alma mater. Back-to-back trips. Congratulations to the Grizzlies.
In the ACC championship game, it was all Duke, or should we say all Zion. Florida State did a good job hanging around, but Zion Williamson was average, just fabulous during the course of the entire tournament. He had 21.7 for 11, and that's his freshman teammate, R.J. Barrett, with the flush. Duke wins it by 10, another ACC title. They will be the #1 overall seed in the tournament, I am sure. Here's Coach K after the win.
It's an honor for us to win. You know, this is the best conference, especially this year, and I'm proud of my guys. They beat 3 outstanding opponents.
Abilene Christian in wire-to-wire fashion, getting it done. Jaron Lewis had a game-high 20. There you see, spreading out amongst the tickets. Coach Joe Golding talked about the accomplishment.
When I took the job, everybody told me I was crazy. I think we had 3 winning seasons in 30 years or something, and they're never going to be able to take this away from me.
Out in the WAC championship, it was Grand Canyon and New Mexico State, but the Aggies of New Mexico State positively dominant. Trayvon Queen with the bucket there. He had 27 points off the bench. How about the Aggies winning this game? 89-57. Look at that final score. They have won 30 games this season, and they have another 1 or 2 in them before it's all said and done.
And the Pac-12, how about Peyton Pritchard? He was everywhere on the stat sheet. 20.7 assists. One of them right there had 4 steals also right there. 40-22, the Ducks took the Huskies to the woodshed in the second half. And Dana Altman doing it again. He has a chance to tell you what it takes for a team to make this happen.
NCAA tournament's not an individualized sport. We either all go or no one goes. Those guys really wanted to go. And, so I think that every one of them gave up a little bit of what they wanted to do for what the team needed them to do.
And there may be a few ants in the ACC tournament. Well, guess what? The Ant-Eaters are going to be there, as they have all season long. UC Irvine dominated the Big West, only lost one league game all season long, rolled through to the Big West Championship. Those teams are used to winning, and I think they like the habit that they have formed the last couple of months.
A few aunts, a couple of uncles to throw in here. Look at the teams that have already secured a spot in the field of 68. How funny how that tends to fill out as we approach.
Oh, yeah. We're closing in on filling it completely out here in the next few hours.
A bunch of those teams just added yesterday. When we come back, before we go away, let me get your number 1 seeds and your number 2 seed.
Hey, quite honestly, I mean, you look at these 8 teams that we're going to put on the screen here. It's kind of like missing a belt loop, okay? Your pants are not going to fall down if you don't get a 1 or 2 seed here. So here I have my number.
Trying to tell me something?
No, I'm just saying it's a minor thing. But okay. Duke, Virginia, Tennessee, Gonzaga. And my 2 seeds, a real strong group there, obviously. I would flip Michigan State based on who wins this conference championship game here in a few hours. Everything else stays the same. And those 8 teams, quite honestly, I think were the same 8 we had at the bracket preview show, if I'm not mistaken,
I believe you're correct.
But you wouldn't flip them all the way to the top line?
No. I think the 2 line is pretty well anchored in if Tennessee wins the SEC.
And I think those 8 teams are pretty solid. Make it a surprise if they win, but I'd be surprised because they don't have that strength of schedule. So I've got the same 8 as Clark. A little bit of a different order. I will say this. I think Tennessee is a number 1 seed, even if they lose today. They don't have the bad losses that some of the other candidates have. And also, they have 2 wins over Kentucky, and they also beat Gonzaga on a neutral court. I think that was really big. So those are my 4 1s, and my 2s will fluctuate depending on what happens. I agree with the Big Ten final.
That's a pretty good group of 8, though.
Really strong.
Very good.
Really
now, when we come back, we'll break down today's battle in Brooklyn for the A-10 championship. Will it be the Bonnies or the Billikens punching tickets to the tournament? Inside College Basketball, presented by Progressive Insurance, is sponsored by Progressive. Get slam dunk savings today. Visit progressive.com. And by Buffalo Wild Wings. Try our game day menu.
We're doing
St. Louis.
Best for 3. He is on fire. The St. Louis Billikens have stunned the Atlantic 10.
St. Bonaventure.
Welch for 3. It's good. That's a good play. This has been impressive.
His luck will continue today. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And Atlantic 10 champion will be crowned over in Brooklyn this afternoon. Our Jamie Erdahl caught up with St. Bonaventure head coach Mark Schmidt a short while ago.
Coach, you said the way that game went yesterday was parallel to how your season has gone. How prepared are your guys now for what they will face today with a chance to go to the NCAA tournament?
I think, it's 40 minutes of playing basketball to realize a dream. And, I don't think there will be a lot of nerves. I think if there was going to be nerves, it would be in the first 2 games. So we're just going to go out there and we're playing with house money, and let's go and play and see how well we can do.
St. Louis put a zone defense out there the entire game yesterday. How prepared are your guys to face something like that?
They're good. They're physical. They rebound the heck out of the basketball. They play really good defense, man-to-man, 1-3-1, and they're just a very good team. Isabel's great off the bounce, so we got our hands full.
Coach, thanks.
Thank you.
When we get to tournaments this time of year, we often run into teams that are in action who haven't made that big of an imprint on the national scene. Doesn't mean they aren't good basketball teams. Right. Tell us about St. Louis.
Yeah, they're a very good defensive team, and they did go through a period. They were picked to win this conference at the beginning of the season, had some bumps, and now have found themselves defensively, Greg. In the last 3 tournament games, they've only allowed 36% field goal shooting and 56 points a game against. And they've had 2 guys play outstanding basketball, Javon Best and Tremaine Isabel Jr., averaging 38 points a game in the 3 tournament wins combined.
And similar to St. Louis, which absolutely destroyed Davidson yesterday, St. Bonaventure really coming in hot, having won 9 of the last 10. They had a very impressive showing against Rhode Island. And this happens with young teams. This is a team that starts 3 freshman starters. But as the season has gone on, they've really grown up a lot, especially their freshman point guard, Kyle Lofton. He had 23 yesterday in the win. This is going to be a low-scoring game. St. Bonaventure, really a terrific defensive team. They also play slow, 329th in the country in tempo. So this one might be first one to 55 wins.
Yeah, and you think about it, neither one of these teams really plays a lot of bench guys. They really rely on their starters 90+% of the minutes. The starters for both of these teams fatigue emotionally and physically. two grinded out defensive teams. How do you get easy buckets? And I think Courtney Stockard is going to be the key for St. Bonnie's, and that's why I have them coming.
All right, guys, here's a growing theme that's been happening during the conference tournaments thus far. #1 seeds being knocked out early and often. And as each top seed falls, the number of at-large bids decreases, and we're calling them dream stealers. Some of them are very evident.
Yeah, you talk about VCU, the team that got knocked out. I think they are a tournament team, which means St. Bonnie's, St. Louis, they've been a dream stealer in the field. I think there's only probably 4 spots left with maybe 8 to 10 teams vying for those last 4 spots.
Makes the selection committee job tougher.
Yeah, it does, because it changes as the week goes on, because you also had Washington, which I think is fairly safe as an at-large coming out of the Pac-12, and then, of course, Gonzaga losing in the West Coast Conference. So that's a big challenge for the committee, having to adjust their thinking as they go. But it's really nervous if you're a bubble team. Each time one of those schools goes down, you know that there's one less spot for you.
Yeah, one of the things that everybody tends to look at, and that they wonder whether or not mid-majors are being treated fairly or not. It's often not even that. It's a matter of which teams are available to go into the...
How many spots? Is that bubble being contracted, or is it expanding? And then you get the conversation, which we always have at this time of year, power conference teams, non-power 6 teams. How do you differentiate between those two teams when the power conference teams tend to have uglier resumes in terms of volumes of wins?
And the mid-major teams cannot get those quality wins. So listen, there are a lot of numbers, and we have a new metric, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I always try to emphasize, my theory is these are actually human beings in the room making their decision. We all have our biases, and you can look at the numbers until you can't see anything.
You can torture them to say what you'd like them to say.
That's exactly right. And so what is your bias? And also, what's best for the game? I mean, a big reason why November and December is so good for college basketball is because this committee has told those power conference teams, you've got to go out and play other teams. So like North Carolina State, they've had a pretty good season. They have the worst non-conference strength of schedule ranking in the entire country, 353. If you reward the Wolfpack, what's their incentive next year to schedule up?
Well, we've seen the committee, Seth, to their credit, and I've always deferred to the confidence I have in the committee. Great job. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely excellent how they go about it, so I have no issues. And they've actually made a pretty strong statement over the last several years that if you come from a Power 6 conference and you haven't been aggressive in challenging yourself, then it's going to cost you. And we'll see how that plays out.
We're going to have a number of power conference teams that are under 500 in their league. And I've advocated for a blanket rule. Even if we don't get there, that's going to be a very important conference.
I've heard some people say, well, in a perfect world, the #1 seeds of all the tournaments would make it into the tournament and win their championship. That doesn't leave room.
That's why we play the games.
Yes, and it doesn't leave room for those teams that got hot.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, but it's it'll be interesting. They're only a handful, and typically because the field was expanded a few years ago, there are very few teams that deserve to get in that don't.
All right.
Very few.
Hey, let's take a look at Jerry Palm's last 4 in and first 4 out. His last 4 in include the Buckeyes, TCU,
I like that one.
John's,
I like that one.
Arizona State, and the first 4 out, Creighton, UNC Greensboro, Furman, and Belmont. Yeah, you probably would like that.
Yeah, but this is, Greg, this is exactly to my point. Now, Jerry's idea is to try to project and predict what the committee is going to do. He's very good at it, been doing it a long time. But with those 3 teams, Furman, Belmont, and UNC Greensboro not being in, and Ohio State and TCU, those are teams that are well under 500 in their conference. So I hope Jerry's usually not wrong. He's not off. I hope he's off by at least 1, because if all those mid-major teams are left out, there's going to be a big-time conversation about what's truly good for the sport.
Yeah, I would actually have Belmont and UNC Greensboro.
I do too.
But at whose expense? At whose expense?
TCU, and I forget who else was on that list. I wouldn't discount the Buckeyes out of that.
Of course not.
no, but the TCU, who else was on? Who else?
It was TCU, Arizona State. Well, TCU. You'd put Greensboro in.
I'd have Arizona State, Ohio State, UNC Greensboro, and Belmont. That means that St. John's and TCU would be out based on what's on the screen there. If I had a vote.
I've got Belmont and Greensboro, and I have TCU out.
Wait till Jerry gets in here. When Inside College Basketball, presented by Progressive Insurance, continues, our hard hats are off to the champs of the MAC with a closer look at the blue-collar team from Buffalo ready to get to work.
Blue-collar points. It's stuff that a lot of people don't want to do that wins games.
That is an offensive foul.
Hard-nosed, hands-on, dirty work, blue-collar mentality. It's Buffalo. Jeremy shakes to the lane, takes it right to the basket, and slams it down with the left hand for his dunk. Graves on the right corner for three. Bullseye! Javon Graves has come through with some mighty clutch shots tonight. Jeremy drives Cloud into the foul line to the lane. Right-handed scoop shot goes in. And history again for the Bulls. QB beats Bowling Green, and they're headed to the dance again. 2019 NCAA tournament.
And what a season it has been and continues to be for the Buffalo Bulls, eclipsing the 30-win plateau for the first time in school history en route to a fourth conference title over the last 5 years. And following the lead of head coach Nate Oates, the Bulls have adopted the blue-collar mentality of the city they represent, taking pride in doing the dirty work that could have the MAC champs packing their hard hats for Minneapolis.
Hurry up, let's go! Buffalo is blue-collar.
Battle for it. Buffalo gets it.
There you go. Nobody's above anybody else here.
And it's an offensive foul.
They work hard. They give everything they got. They know it's not the flashy stuff that wins games. Blue-collar points. It's stuff that a lot of people don't want to do that wins games. It's taking charges. It's diving on the floor for loose balls. It's a way to measure effort.
Blue-collar, it's the dirty work. Those is like the plays that nobody really pay attention to that actually help the team win.
A charge is worth 4 points, a deflection is worth 2, and everything else is worth 1.
Dunks don't count for blue-collar points. Threes don't count for blue-collar points. Fancy layups are banned here. Good, stay back, switch back! Yeah!
It's just the person with the most tallies wins the blue-collar hat for that game, and it's just bragging rights for the next game.
Perkins will go to the line for an and one chance. That is an offensive foul.
I was a math teacher, so I did a little regression equation. I did a correlation between real points and blue-collar points, and there's a pretty strong correlation. The harder you play, the more you lose yourself into doing the blue-collar stuff, the more you actually end up scoring those games.
You're looking at the identity of Buffalo, off the court and on the court. This right here is something that we take pride in, and you never give up, and you always give everything you have.
Listen, Crows, I think you had 9, 8, and 7 or something crazy. Like you're pushing a triple-double tonight. It was great. And you won that. So, good job. It's appropriate, since I told everybody in there that you were the epitome of blue-collar, so it's great.
Hey, go. Everybody touch the hat. Everybody touch the hat.
There we go. Hey, I got together, you got to win. Together, we win.
That's blue-collar.
I think this blue-collar stuff has caught on in Buffalo and is working really well for them.
Yeah, it really is. And I'd like to give you a nice hard hat, but I can't go with the this is maize, which goes with blue.
And the problem with
scarlet and gray Buckeye.
Problem
so
with that would be?
We're going to go this way. And I would recommend that I throw you a hard hat for how blue-collar you are.
I recommend you keep your ideas to yourself.
It's kind of a good color, though, for you, though.
Let's talk about this Buffalo team.
Yeah.
How high a seed do you think they might get?
Well, I think they're in the neighborhood of 6, 7, which would be the highest seed since the field expanded for a team from the MAC. No MAC team has been seeded above that line, above the 8 line. So I think they're worthy. I've watched them a lot. They do everything, and they play with the blue-collar relentlessness and grit. They've come back in a number of games just because they refuse to give in to the adversity within games. And because of that, I think they've got a tremendous chance to make an extended run in this tournament.
And by the way, let's not confuse blue-collar, hard hat, hard-nosed basketball with boring. They're the 9th fastest team in the country.
Yeah, they play at a great pace.
A ton of points. And most importantly, this is now their 4th NCAA tournament in the last 5 years. They destroyed Arizona in the first round of last year's tournament, and they got 4 starters back. So I'm a big believer in schools from these mid-major conferences having that NCAA tournament experience because they've been through that pressure, they've been through that crucible. The whole process is so different than anything they encounter in the regular season, and also the confidence, not only beating Arizona, by the way, the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, but doing it very handily last year.
And then they competed pretty well against Kentucky. I mean, they were in that game most of the way until Kentucky stretched it out. Yeah.
All right, there are 6 remaining automatic qualifying bids that are up for grab this afternoon. One in the SEC, where Auburn and Tennessee square off for a conference championship in Nashville. The Vols hope they can play their way to a #1 after storming back yesterday to stun Kentucky. Meanwhile, the Tigers outlasted the Gators to reach their first conference title game in 20 years. As you look ahead to the Vols, they're looking good.
They are looking good. They've looked good all year. I mean, they had that hiccup when they got beat by Kentucky, lost on the road at LSU, but this is an outstanding team, much like Buffalo in terms of that hard hat, blue collar mentality. And that's not to dismiss talent, because both of those teams do. But when you talk about Tennessee, their experience and the play of Jordan Bone, he's been one of the outstanding point guards in all of college basketball this year.
Truly, really scoring the ball. And, I mean, Tennessee was beat yesterday. I mean, and beat by a pretty good team down the stretch, but they found the fortitude in those three-point shots, and it's similar to what they did when they beat Gonzaga in Phoenix early in the season, finding that three-ball late in the game. So that muscle memory, knowing they're capable of doing that, and I also think psychologically, Clark, to do that against Kentucky, a team that beat them so bad in Rupp. Of course, they returned the favor in Knoxville, but that comeback down the stretch, and the fact that their last loss, by the way, was to Auburn on the road when Okeke kind of beat him up inside. So I think the toughness of Tennessee's front court is going to have to rise. And I'll just repeat, by the way, and this is just me, I got them as a 1 seed even if they lose this game.
Speaking
I got them as a 1 if they win.
Speaking psychologically, what did that loss yesterday do for Kentucky with the tournament upcoming?
Well, they've had a great year. So they don't strike me as the type of team that's going to be unnerved by that loss. Certainly they have to correct what was wrong. You know, P.J. Washington was in a lot of foul trouble in the first half. He played much better in the second. We know that Kentucky's a young team, but I think they're resilient. They're tough. They lost to a real good team in Tennessee. And if they can correct the problems that they had down the stretch, I see no reason why Kentucky can't win a national championship. I think they're that.
And the other thing is, as you go through the conference season and finish up with these conference tournaments, the familiarity that exists in conference play really is hard to overcome. That's why these conference tournaments have such a tournament feel to them. And so when teams are looking forward to stepping outside of that, it creates a new level of energy and opportunity as you get ready to be part of the field of 68, which a team like Kentucky and many others look very much forward to.
One of the teams that'll probably appear early in the selection show tonight. Coming up next, Jim, Raft, and Grant join us to talk all things tournament. But first, more from the Infinity Test Drive and its continued dedication to coaches versus cancer.
One of the fiercest rivalries in college basketball is renewed. Nasty! Tillman inside. Runner, it's put back by Teskey. Unbelievable vision as the Michigan State Spartans score themselves an incredibly gritty win.
Oh, and a two-handed slam. Here comes the three ball. He got it. Michigan State welcomes in this rival Michigan and wins it.
Michigan and Michigan State Big Ten championship matchup is all set.
Later this afternoon here on CBS, either Michigan or Michigan State will win the Big Ten and clinch the last automatic bid and punch a ticket to the tournament, Clark.
That's exactly right, Greg. March Madness is the greatest show in town, and you can't get in without a ticket. 26 have already been punched, and 12 more teams are waiting in line to hopefully punch one of the remaining 6. That's exactly right. That's the ticket. It's that time of year again where people are marching to the beat of the NCAA tournament. There is no question this month offers the most sought-after ticket. If you get one, you are good to go. Throughout the year, the other tickets may be sought, bought, traded, exchanged, lost, or found, but none compare to the madness of getting ticketed in March. And while some tickets we could do without, others are considered golden. But only one gets you to sports' biggest dance.
That's it! Bradley is going to the NCAA tournament!
There's no waiting in line for this ticket. Just win your conference, and you're in.
We created 32 tickets, and there's one for each conference.
For the first time, the Gardner-Webb Bulldogs.
Each conference champion will receive an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament.
Are headed to the NCAA tournament.
Getting to all the conferences has probably been the biggest challenge, and our ticket's a little bit too big, so it's not an easy UPS ship.
Northeastern has punched its ticket to the NCAA tournament this year.
the size is actually what's going to give the ticket a life of its own, kind of its own world. And watching the teams bring it through an airport or hold it behind, I think one of the first charges was how many guys can we fit behind the ticket for like a photo opportunity or on a stage, and that was where the 6 feet came from. Conversation was had to on the back of the ticket whether or not to put not admissible ticket for event. You don't want someone to show up and, oh, here's my ticket. Obviously, you wouldn't think that, but you never know. It depends on how it goes, but it can have a life of its own and can really become a nice story piece every March before we get to Selection Sunday.
There will be one final ticket sitting there on the table waiting for one of these teams to grab it. On the call for Michigan, Michigan State, it's Big Ten Championship. Jim Nant, Grant Hill, Bill Raftery join us now from the great city of Chicago. Jim.
Well, thanks, Greg. We're all excited about it. We can't wait for the brackets to be revealed later today. And I think when you talk about these two teams, you know, you can make a case that both of them have a great chance to make it all the way to the Final Four this year, don't you think?
No question, Jim. Both these teams are playing great basketball this time of year. Michigan State, Hall of Fame coach Tom Izzo, Cassius Winston. Of course, the versatility on both ends of the floor for Michigan. So either one of these teams has a chance to not just get to the Final Four, but win.
Nice to be in Chicago for this game and St. Patrick's Day as well. You know, it's interesting. I think it's all about matchups. We always talk about that. You know, Michigan's sort of a finesse team. Threes, pretty good with their swing offense. And then counter Michigan State with some physicality. If you're not accustomed to it, then they can put you away.
You know, you look at these teams and can you build a case that maybe the winner here today could be on the one line at the end of the day, or do you think it's going to be the 3 ACC teams and Gonzaga? What do you think?
Well, Jim, it's a complete body of work of the season. I think Michigan State, if they were to win convincingly here today against Michigan, you could make an argument as a #1 seed. I think Virginia's in. I think Duke's in. The team from Chapel Hill, I'm still a little borderline on the fence. But if Michigan State wins today, you can make an argument that they're #1.
What do you think, Bill?
You know, Jim, I think you're trying to keep both coaches happy here in the Big Ten country. I think it's Tennessee. The reason I say that, earlier in the year they beat Gonzaga when they were #1, which was really impressive. If they win out today, I think they have a right to be on that first line.
Guys, I know you're hanging out there in the Midwest and you've been there for a few days, but I want to pick up on the ACC conversation. You mentioned Duke and Virginia and North Carolina. Which of those three, or is there another team that you think might be positioned for the best run in this year's tournament?
Well, you know, a week ago, it's interesting. There was a lot of uncertainty about Duke and the health of Zion Williamson. I think he dispelled that this week with his dominant performance. When healthy, Duke is 23-1 on the season. Guess what, guys? They're healthy. Zion's healthy. Coach K, this team, I think they are, without a doubt, the overall #1. And I'm not just saying it because of Seth Davis being a distinguished alum.
There are other teams in this tournament. You know that.
Grant, nobody knows that I went to Duke. You're not supposed to give that away. I can't believe you just spilled my all these years. I've been able to keep that a secret and been able to, you know, people aren't going to like me as much as they like you coming from Duke. But I want to steer you guys back to the Big Ten with 2 questions. First of all, give me a dark horse out of the Big Ten that you think could make a run to Minneapolis. And also, I'm curious, you guys are there courtside, so you've seen Cassius Winston play a couple of days for Michigan State. They talk about how hurt he is. How compromised is Cassius Winston physically, because he's obviously going to be a key not only today but moving forward?
Well, you know, I think he is hurt. The ankle and then the toe, of course. But watching both games, he was just sensational against Michigan. Great handle. Simpson was an excellent defender, had his problems containing him, and the ball screen was so impactful. I'm sure they're going to have to shore that up, or Michigan's going to walk out of here with a loss.
Love the matchup, though, today at point guard with Simpson against Winston.
Well, those two kids have been playing against one another forever. They're great leaders. They just get everybody involved on both ends of the floor. They're so competitive as well.
All right, dark horse team from the Big Ten. You know, Purdue was the co-champion of the regular season. You got Wisconsin. We saw them yesterday. What do you think? Is there somebody else?
Yeah, I think the co-champions during the regular season, you know, Purdue, obviously they didn't play well in the quarterfinal game, but Carson Edwards, he's explosive. The way they shoot the ball from the perimeter. Matt Painter, a very underrated coach, has had a fantastic season. They'll regroup, they'll be better, and get themselves ready for next week. But Purdue's a team that has a chance for a deep run and a dark horse from the Big Ten.
Guys, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, too. One of the features, I think, of this matchup today is the great coaching matchup, John Beilein and Tom Izzo.
Doesn't get much better than that. I got to tell you, this is, we're talking a Hall of Fame set of coaches here in this game.
Different styles, too. You know, Tom's more in your face, as you are with us during the broadcast, I might add. Beeline professorial on that sideline. And even the way they play, you know, it's scripted a lot with Michigan State, but it's just the banging. They're always in the right spot. They just reach deep inside of it. Counter that, the other thing is very hard to play because they can make threes, and Simpson's wonderful controlling the ball, dribble driving, and he has an old-time hook like Clark Kellogg.
Well, speaking of me, I've got another question for you guys. Want you to go deep now and spread it out. Let's hear if you've got a under-the-radar team that you've had a chance to take a look at outside of the Power Six, if there's a team that's caught you all's fancy.
Come on, Clark. You know where I'm going with this. You know I'm going Houston, and I know you love my Cougars.
I do. I
don't know how much of a sleeper they are. They're going to be on the 3 line in this in this bracket reveal.
Yeah.
But I love this team, and I know you do too. Kelvin Sampson, the way they play defense, watch out.
And they beat Cincy and LSU at home, beat Cincy on the road too. Something to be said for that. But I'm going to stay within the power conferences. I love Texas Tech, and the reason I like Chris Beard is a disciple of Bob Knight. Of course, that says enough about the defensive end of things. But Jared Culver is one of those kids in this country a lot of people haven't heard. They've got up front Owens, Tariq Owens, kid who went to Tennessee, St. John's, and now at Texas Tech. So they have some size as well. And David Moretti from Italy. So we'll know some good restaurants when we get down to Texas Tech. So I like them.
All right. And as usual, Raftery looks on my notes, steals my team, Texas Tech. But I have another team. It's okay. It's St. Patrick's Day. I don't mind. But I love Florida State in the ACC. I live in Florida. I've watched a lot of them. They won 12 of the last 13 games. 7 of their 8 top scorers are juniors and seniors. They have experience, athleticism, a lot of depth. And, of course, Leonard Hamilton, a very underrated coach. I know they're in the big Power 5, Power 6 conferences, but I like Florida State as a sleeper.
By the way, guys, last night, Jim was so nice. He had an Irish pipe band come in during dinner and play a few songs. I didn't do a jig, but I sort of had a little lemonade.
A half jig.
They probably didn't even know they were there, Bill. Hey, you guys have a great call, and we'll run into you a bit later. The running Bulldogs of Gardner-Webb University going dancing for the first time ever. The Big South champs will join us when Inside College Basketball, presented by Progressive Insurance, returns. And we are pleased to say, joining us now, the champions of the Big South, the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs, make their first NCAA tournament appearance. We welcome head coach Tim Kraft, senior guard David Effiani. Coach, let me start with you. The first time for anything is always got to be special. How have things changed for you in the short time since everybody on campus knows that you're headed for the tournament for the first time?
Well, it's just so exciting. I mean, it's to do this for the first time, and it's been, a long time in the making. It's really a humbling experience that you're just thankful and you're glad to be a part of it, and you kind of get the feeling that it's about more than you, because this community has just been on fire, and former players and so many people just feel like they're a part of this. So it's been really cool.
Coach, what were your thoughts about this team when you first hit training camp and looked ahead to the season?
Well, we really liked our team. We liked our leadership here with this guy beside me, DJ Laster, Brandon Miller, our 3 seniors. Had some other veterans on our team, 4-year guys, redshirt juniors, Eric Jameson, Justin Jenkins, Christian Turner. So we had a good mix of experience, and then we felt like we had a good group of young guys added to the mix, and it's really been a nice balance.
David, for you, obviously being a senior, how good does this feel to be at this point? And then also take me back to you being Coach Kraft's first recruit, from what I understand. Take me back to that time.
Yes, sir. It's just an amazing experience. Being here for 5 years, you go through a lot. So just to finally win, it feels amazing. Going back to when Coach Kraft was recruiting me, I fell in love as soon as I got on campus. The family atmosphere was through the roof. Coach Kraft and the staff was great people, and it was recruiting me more than just a player, also as a person, and I feel like I grew so much with my time being here.
David, you guys went into the Big South tournament as the number 4 seed. You had to win road games, including against Campbell, which obviously had a great year. So I'm pretty sure you're also going to be an underdog in your next game. So how do you carry forward that success and that belief as an underdog into whoever you play a few days from now?
Yes, sir. Just looking at the brackets before the season, before the tournament started, me and the guys were saying, like, what best way to win the conference going through the first and second seed possibly, what played out. And we were just telling each other, just one more, just compete each possession and just play together. We felt like if we did those things, that we would come on top.
David, how has your phone been handling the attention of being a team that's going to the field of 68?
It's been blowing up. A lot of texts from previous coaches and family back home. It's very exciting. It's a great feeling because I wouldn't be here without them. They helped me get to this point, and I'm very appreciative.
Guys, we appreciate you taking the time. I imagine you might be tuning in later this evening when we call your name and let you know where you're going and who you're going to be playing. Congratulations to you, and good luck.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
a lot, guys.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. First game of our championship doubleheader today is St. Louis and St. Bonaventure for the Atlantic 10 title. Jamie Erdahl also caught up with Travis Ford, head coach of the Billikens, a short while ago.
Coach, we discussed yesterday how challenging 3 in 3 days was, but now it's 4 in 4 days. How have you prepared your guys for this moment and the emotion behind it?
You know, we've just tried to focus on this game. Don't think too much about the end result of what you're trying to accomplish, which I think everybody knows, but just focus on what it takes to get to that point. What in our game plan do we need to do to get the end result we want, whether it be on the defensive end, the offensive end, and really try to have laser focus on the game plan and scouting report and how hard we need to play. You know, they've gotten their rest. It is what it is at this point. We don't spend any time talking about it, worrying about it. You know, we just need to throw the ball up and let's play.
Just 8 days ago, you lost to this team. How can this one be different for you?
Well, hopefully we keep them off the free throw line a little bit more than we did the first game. Hopefully we make a few more layups. We missed a lot of layups in the first game. But these are two similar basketball teams that win with physicality and aggressiveness. We have a lot of respect for St. Bonaventure and, you know, and the job that they've had, the year that they've had. So hopefully we can get a little bit different result. But it was a good game the first time. You know, we led for about probably 25 minutes of the game. But unfortunately, it was a 40-minute game. So hopefully we can finish it off this time.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.
Jamie, thank you. When we come back, it wouldn't be March without inviting Cinderella to the dance. The invitations are set to go out tonight. We're nowhere near striking midnight.
This improbable story continues. By George, the dream is alive. The shocker of all shockers. UNBC makes history.
Loyola, they are in the tournament for the first time in 33 years.
God bless us. Amen. And go Ramblers.
Here they come.
We all trust each other. Clay could have hit the shot.
Inbound to Custer. Rises.
And Marcus could have hit the shot.
Towns for 3.
Yes, sir! Marcus Towns!
We ain't going.
Chicago, you got a Final Four team. The Ramblers headed to San Antonio.
Loyola's Cinderella run to the Final Four was one for the mid-major history books, but just in case you need a quick refresher course on the importance of the underdog, here's someone who apparently majored in mid-majors.
Excuse me. Pardon me. Coming through. No offense. Excuse me. Walk in. Hello. Move. Hello, America. I'm back.
You want a bracket, Buster?
Next
stop, the NCAA tournament.
Ticket to the dance.
Oh, yeah! Mr. Mid-Major has got his ticket. What did you think? The tournament was about these guys? You're wrong! Out of here! See ya! Scram! We're the ones that bring you the excitement. We're the ones that bring you the drama. We're the ones that brought you Sister Jean. And without us, there is no Cinderella. And who doesn't love a good Cinderella story? I had enough already. These heels are killing me. Oh, come on! Nice try. We mid-majors, we stick together. Well, unless you're Gonzaga. Oh, look at you guys trying to be a 1 seed. See, we don't become 1 seeds. We UMBC 1 seeds.
You must be Cinderella.
Wow. But what we really want is to hear that song playing for us. Hey, don't laugh. It'll happen. As a matter of fact, this guy got us this close to the promised land.
At midcourt, launches the shot.
Oh, I still can't watch that. But next time, it's going in. So when you're filling out your bracket, don't you forget about me, Mr. Mid-Major, because one day I'll be singing One Shining Moment. Oh, come on. Enough of the Cinderella already. And I'll see you at the Final Four.
I think we've just been lectured. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a really good, funny lecture, too.
I get that
right
dress. I think I want to wear that dress this week at some point.
I think you're welcome.
It's about the only thing I haven't done on television is wear a dress.
The mid-majors is something that we always talk about over at the desk during the season and leading up to the postseason. But the fact of the matter is there are Davids and there are Goliaths every year in the tournament. Yeah. And you really can't have a tournament without a little of each.
No, it helps to have some of the little guys that rise up and knock off the big boys in the one-and-done format of the tournament. You know it's going to happen. You just don't know when or where. I've got a team that I've been watching all season long that very well could fit that category and maybe put that slipper on. The Anteaters, California Irvine, UC Irvine. These guys defend at a high level, top 10 in rebound margin and field goal percentage defense. And Max Hazard and Evan Leonard, they have a couple of guys that can go for big numbers, but this is a really good, solid team. 8 to 10 guys play, all contribute significantly. They've won 30 games. This is a team that you need to keep an eye on, folks. They are really solid and very good.
Well, you can't have Cinderella stories without Cinderellas in the tournament, which is why I'm going to continue to advocate that the committee reach out to these mid-major type of schools, but there are a couple that I'm watching as well. I don't even know if we call them Cinderella at this point, but the Terriers of Wofford, I know they're ranked 20th in the AP poll, but they are in the Southern Conference. They've lost 4 games all season long, but all 4 were outside the conference. They are a great three-point shooting team with Fletcher McGee and Nathan Hover, second in the country, and a big guy inside, and Cam Jackson, who can go to the glass when those teams miss. And the other team that I like, by the way, to his point about UC Irvine, is New Mexico State. I like teams that have won all season long. So during the selection show, I like to look for those teams that have very small numbers on the right side of the ledger. In New Mexico State, 30-4, 18-1 in the WAC, and they destroyed Grand Canyon by 32 points in their conference final. I think they're ready to do some damage.
All right, guys. 10 championship while the committee continues to tweak the brackets for tonight's selection show. Inside College Basketball, presented by Progressive Insurance, is sponsored by Progressive. Get slam dunk savings today. Visit progressive.com. And by Indeed, the world's #1 job site. The A-10 championship on the line. We get closer to tip-off in Brooklyn. Bonnie's freshman guard Kyle Lofton has scored at least 20 points in each of the first 2 games of this tournament. For St. Louis, senior Javon Best paced all scorers with 24 on 10 of 14 from the field in the Billikens' blowout win over Davidson to advance to today's final. 1 conference championship already underway. Harvard and Yale for the Ivy League title, gang.
And, Greg, they are cooking with gas. No electric cooking here. These two teams are getting after it. Both shooting well over 50%. Blake Reynolds had 10 in the first half, 2 of them right there. Miye only missed his first 5, but he's the dynamic player for the Bulldogs. This little fella can absolutely make music. Bryce Aiken, they're 12-3 since he came back from injury. He's got 21 in the first half. That's one of my other sleepers. The winner of this game, Greg, will be dangerous for whoever they face in the tournament.
All right, let's look ahead real quickly now to St. Louis against St. Bonaventure. As you heard Travis Ford tell Jamie Erdahl, we just played these guys a few days ago. Does that have an effect at all for a team, one way or the other? Who won, who lost the last time they played when it was so recent?
As I often say, the past will repeat itself
until it
doesn't, right? That's what Professor Kellogg tells me. Certainly, there's a lot of familiarity inside of the conference. Talked earlier about St. Bonaventure with 3 freshman starters. They have had a lot of game experience, a lot of minutes. Kyle Lofton is playing great. So they're coming in red hot, winning 9 of their last 10. Like I said, it's going to be a low-scoring, slow-paced game. I like the Bonnies.
Yeah, I like the Bonnies as well because I think Courtney Stockard is going to step up. He's really struggled in the last 4 games, and those guards have been spectacular, even though they're freshmen for St. Bonaventure.
All right, gentlemen, we will wrap this up and see you back here at halftime. But right now, it's St. Louis and St. Bonaventure for the A-10 championship. It comes your way after this message and a word from your local station.